Hello and welcome to National Young Writers Festival 2021. This is the Brainworm panel. Its official title is called Being Extremely Online, Representations of the Digital World. I'm Michael Sun, I'm on Gadigal land right now, and I am, as Sandra Oh famously said in her Netflix series of the same name, the chair of this panel. And yeah, I think today we're going to be having a really interesting chat about, like what being on the internet in this day and age actually means. I'm a writer and cultural critic, as I said, based in Gadigal land. And we're also joined by Nina Oyama.
Hello, I'm Nina Oyama. I'm broadcasting from Gadigal land, aka Marrickville, and I'm a writer, TV writer, and also I'm on Twitter. Oh, and also I'm a stand-up comedian. But that bit doesn't matter because it's like in the real world, so it's not as interesting. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
You're also a comedian on the internet.
Oh, and I'm also a comedian. I comede everywhere. It's it's in my bones. I can't help it.
Hi, I'm Durr-e Haque. I'm broadcasting from Gadigal country, also known as Chatswood in this area that I'm in. I'm a writer and poet, but I'm here at the festival as a podcaster. This year, I'm the co-creator of Gay B Club. So that's a podcast where I look at various LGBT media and representations of people of color in those media.
Cool. Hello, I'm Jared Richards. I'm on Gadigal country, Marrickville, right near Nina. I bumped into her on the street the other day. Well, COVID safe, it was fine. We're both very...
we were wearing a lot of masks and sunglasses.
Yeah, I truly didn't recognize you at all. Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks to both of us being extremely online. We're really just like unsure how to interact. I am a critic and a writer. I write for The Guardian, Junkie, NME, other places. I'm probably best known for my Drag Race recaps. Please don't ask me about that show. I'm on break. The show's not on at the moment. I don't want to talk about it. And yeah, no, I've had a Twitter account since 2009. So I've been destroyed by the internet.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm introducing myself. I was like, what am I doing? I'm Panda, and I'm a poet, and I'm broadcasting from Durr-e country. And yeah.
Cool. I thought by way of introduction, we could maybe, talk about where the places we actually are that we spend online. I know for many of us, we do spend many hours a day on Twitter, but I am very curious to see whether there are any other sources where we're just like tapping away and like expending all of our brainworms as we are doom scrolling every single day.
Recently, Instagram Discover page. I don't know why, but it's like a perfect mix of TikToks, depression memes, screenshots of tweets, and like food stuff. And for some reason, it's like all curated in my Instagram. Is that not cool to have like an Instagram Discover page? Previously, I never used it. Like the only time I ever really clocked it was I was looking at my friend's Instagram and I went to his Discover page and it was all like naked women. And I was like, oh, interesting. And I was like, but I don't know why. It's like, it's kind of created this like very good mash of like all the media that I do consume. And it has like a really good mix of like sincere, like mental health tips and also like just memes about horrible things that are like extremely ironic. I don't know. I feel like it's figured out that line that I feel like we're all craved to like find the line of like being like ironic and cool, but like talking about genuine subjects. And I think, not to brag, but I've done that with my Instagram Discover page.
No, I do feel like your Instagram Explore page is like definitely like a litmus test for who you actually are.
I think
maybe
so
more
too.
so than we even know ourselves. Like it knows us better.
It really does. And there's this like a rise in like very specific like sad girl ironic memes that I just think could only exist on a downward spiral. I feel like on a downward spiral like provided the the playbook and then like all these like manic pixie meme queen and like I don't know like all the other ones that I'm blanking on right now. I feel like they followed suit. And it's just a fantastic space to be in.
That's
Panda,
what
what
the
about you?
algorithm
Where are
thinks
you
you
spending
are.
your time online?
Ooh, well, I actually deleted Twitter because lockdown has made me want to go like maybe a bit cottagecore, but online and just like start deleting random social media platforms. So I've been going a bit old school and just been really obsessed with YouTube and Wikipedia because I feel like I'm just like poking through someone's like weird little interests. And I feel like the videos I've been really obsessed with lately are just like I haven't seen the ocean for 2 years. So videos of the ocean, which is really sad. And Chinese, like a lot of Chinese like online trends, like, you know, the makeup transformation ones where they're like shaving putty off their face and pulling like tape off their face. Yeah, I feel like I've just become pretty insular in my internet habits, but I think it's important for making me not feel totally unhinged, even though I just told you all the content I'm watching, so it's a bit unhinged anyways.
I love that you look at the ocean on the internet. That's very funny that is like extremely online, I feel like.
Jared and Adan, are either of you finding yourselves more or less unhinged on the internet lately?
You go.
Oh, me go. Okay. Well, obviously I'm on Twitter. I don't post as much on Twitter anymore. I remember there was a distinct point where I stopped posting on Twitter frequently last year. I just, like, as Panda said, like lockdown, like kind of killed that for me. But I guess this is a testament to how chronically online I am. I am still on Tumblr. Which I know. Oh, thank you. Everyone talks about Tumblr like it's a dead website, but it's very much alive still, and it's actually surprisingly peaceful. I think that's why I've started to prefer it over Twitter, because it's just relentless, and I guess you have a lot more control over what you see. Like, because Nina, you were talking about, like, you know, like the algorithm of the Instagram Discover page and everything, and I guess like with Tumblr, it's less of that because it's more like you personally curating what you're seeing, even though there's a Discover page and stuff.
Rather
like
than
that,
the robot telling you stuff. Yeah. I do have a question for the panel. Are we all Tumblr teens? Like, what is the Tumblr teen to extremely online millennial adult pipeline? Because
Yes.
I have a very embarrassing thing to confess, which is that for like maybe like 3 years from 2015 to 2018, I let everyone believe that I was a Tumblr teen, but the reality was that I had never had Tumblr at all. But I will say this. My first interaction with like being online, quote unquote, was Twitter, and it was during a phase where I feel like lots of people had mass exodus from Tumblr to Twitter. Like, I was deep in the Vampire Weekend Twitter fandom, and it was like all Tumblr people who had like given up on the Tumblr side of things, and they were like, Twitter is our new home. So I feel like I had like a little degree of exposure, but this is me coming out as a non-Tumblr user.
Wow.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
The funniest thing, being trying to fit in, being like, yeah, I love Tumblr. Like, I took lots of pictures of my Converse.
Not a lot of people are ashamed of not shitting on Tumblr.
I think if you were a Tumblr teen, you were definitely depressed. I think that's kind of like people that are on Tumblr like were not having a good time in high school. That's kind of how I interpret.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to put that out there. Sorry to come for you all in this way. But as someone that did not have a good time in high school, like I had a huge online community that I lurked on in Tumblr, and I feel like now my relationship to Twitter is like I'm very much part of that rather than being like a witness to it.
Yeah, I feel like Tumblr, for me at least as a teenager, was very much about the aesthetic of depression. Rather than like, I mean, I definitely was depressed, but it was also about performing depression, which I think I try and shy
Which
away
is what
from.
I still do today. It's literally my entire personality.
I try and suffer in silence.
I feel like I used to follow you on Tumblr, Jared, because we have a mutual. Yeah, because you used to be best friends with my cousin, and I mean,
I still am. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Shout out to Saskia.
Yeah.
But I do. Yeah, I feel like it was very much that aesthetic.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something, Jared, that you said, which I find very interesting, which is like the aesthetic of depression, which is something that I find still, as Nina, you said as well, very prevalent online. And I think it's something that maybe the online space particularly encourages this tone of like sincerity, of like this like traumatic, dazed, very oversharing kind of tone that has become almost like the default mode of communication for like many people and perhaps like many online spaces. I don't know how we feel about that, and like whether you think the online space actually does facilitate that, or whether it's more like a byproduct of how we use the online spaces.
Actually, I feel like I think it's like, for me, it's like a reaction to having to like have a job and like be like a functional person who doesn't, or like not even a functional person, like a work robot who doesn't express their needs in the workplace and just like does my little tasks and stuff. And then when I'm on the internet, I can react to that and just be totally unemployable in all of my spaces. And I don't think, and I also read this study about how these scientists debunked this idea that the internet facilitates like aggression and like bad behavior. They kind of found that most people who are acting those ways were actually that way in real life. So I think maybe we're all actually just depressed and that maybe we're allowed to be in normal life.
Yeah, there's definitely like an ease with expressing depression or sad thoughts online that doesn't exist in real life, or not is easy. It's like a shorthand. Like you can just, why talk to a therapist about like your deep dark things, which is really cringe, when you can just like share a meme about it.
I do believe that. I also believe as someone that like depression posts, I would go so far as to say that I'm depression core. But it is that thing where I'm always like, I'm sad, but then also like getting rewarded for that, like getting rewarded for like posting funny things about being sad. And then also the way that like I'm obsessed with like my Instagram discover page, which is like all sad memes, and I share them. And like that's something really weird in that. And like, I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, like it's capitalism. We're all just stuck in this, as Panda said, like stuck in this place that we don't want to be, and so it is like a manifestation of that.
This notion of reward I find quite interesting as well. Like maybe it's not even so much that everyone is depressed on the internet or whatever, but I do think that because we are able to access reward so quickly and like so frequently on the internet, do you find yourselves like thinking about that when you post things? Do you find yourselves almost like, do you find your identities or like personal brands, quote unquote, changing to fit whatever things you're getting rewarded for on the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like with depression, with like mental illness stuff, or like, I don't know, advocacy is not the right word because that's not what it is. But I do think there's this thing where you're like, my brain is like, by posting this, like I'm actually helping other people with depression and like giving them the words to say like a dumb joke that like they relate to. Like it's this thing where you like convince yourself you're like the voice of the people when I'm not. Like I know I'm not, and I know I'm stupid and whatever. But I think there is like, it's very easy to like, if you are constantly reaffirmed with like getting heaps of numbers on a tweet about wanting to kill yourself, you're like, oh, I'm like speaking out for those who like can't express themselves. Like it's so, I think it's easy to get like caught in that feedback loop, and then it's like about the dichotomy of like what people expect from you versus what you actually want to put out into the world, like versus how you desire to appear and how you're going to be interpreted. Sorry, the second self, as it were.
Oh, I was going to say, it's just like, I think because you're online, like the online, it's a void, and when you have a void, like aren't you gonna, like, why not scream into it? And I think as well, like what you were
and the
saying,
voice
Panda,
screams
about
back,
how you
great
should-
job.
Yeah, exactly.
Great job,
And
that
like,
was funny. And you're like, thanks, Void. Here's another
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you were saying, Panda, about like how you're able to be unemployable on like that's exactly it. Like it's the space that you have is in a way like it's like it's like not quite real to us even though like at this stage in our lives, it most definitely is, but there's still a way, I guess because everyone online has this understanding, like as long as we maintain this understanding that it's not real, that's how we can sustain this void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I said that I wasn't going to mention Drag Race, but I have been
Please.
thinking. Gigi Good, one of the queens from season 12, talked about like being famous online, and she was like, the only way that I've managed to stay sane is to be like, none of it's real, none of these people are real, which can be really weird because then you meet these people or you bump into Nina on the street and you're like, this is a real person. And I think there's like, sorry to use you as an example, Nina, but I think there can be this sense that like people are more oh God, where was I going with this? I think like there's almost I don't know, I think like you can view people online like very like intimately or like have this real connection to them, to like their deepest, darkest secrets, or to their most cancelable, ideas or offenses, but you never really see them like in a day-to-day interaction as who they are. So it means that we get like these really extreme versions of each other. And then I think when you meet people in real life, you realize that everybody's actually just pretty normal. Like we all just express the weirdest parts of ourselves online in our most heightened self. But like you can talk to everybody about the weather, like that sort of thing. And you don't do that online. You talk about like why Sandra Oh should stab you in the chest,
Yeah, why all the members of Boy Genius should step on me.
Exactly.
I actually had this thing where it's like I had to realize one day, it was actually National Young Writers Fest in 2019, where I kind of went to the festival not knowing anyone. And because I knew a lot of people from Twitter were like posting about the festival, being at the festival, I went to someone's panel that was my mutual. And afterwards I went up to her and I was like, hi, I'm Nina from Twitter. And then she was like, that's great. And then she like walked away. And I was like, oh, these like connections and this way that I speak about my mutuals online as if they're like my friends, as if I would like talk to them in real life. It's not genuine. Like these people actually want nothing to do. Maybe it's a me specific thing because I'm insufferable.
No, it's a them specific thing. They were just rude. Name and shame.
No, just kidding. But it wasn't. No, she's fun. She's great. And her panel was really good. But I was like, there was this like, there was something in that moment that was like, oh, like I cannot forge I cannot rely on like a genuine connection or like a forging that genuine connection in real life that like I may be able to like, comment on something or input into a thread on
But what do
Twitter.
you think has changed? Because I feel like we were all talking about, I mean, I didn't experience this famously, was not on Tumblr, but a few minutes ago, I think you guys were all talking about how on Tumblr you were able to find these senses of community maybe, or like you were able to find real, quote unquote, real friends. What do you think has changed from that time to now, where perhaps relationships online seem a lot more superficial and a lot more like less real, less tangible?
Okay, first of all, I never said I found community on Tumblr. I was just retweeting. So I just want to put that out there. But I actually have the opposite thing where I've made so many friends online that sometimes I'm like, it's not embarrassing, but sometimes I'm like, and here is my other friend that I met through Instagram because I love responding to stories about what people are cooking or whatever. I don't know, I feel like there's always like a level that you reach where you kind of have to push past that level and be like, do you want to get a coffee that we can't push past these days? And also, no one is posting their best content right now. It's just like, here I go on my government mandated walk, and that's really limiting in the ways that you can get to know people. I think we've become so much more flattened because of our circumstances. But I feel like some of my best friends I found through the internet, and I will probably keep finding more best friends through the internet.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've made so many friends via online, and like it's affected my life in so many wonderful ways. And it's very easy to be cynical about it because I think it's such a negative space and such like a heightened emotional space a lot of the time, because that's what like tracks and that's what gets engagement, etc., etc. But like, yeah, it's being able to like push past that, and like while recognizing like the limitations of responding to people's Instagram. Like I've have like embarrassing stories, Panda, where like I respond to people and I'm like, oh, we're friends, and then like I'll see them in real life and they'll just blank me, or like, you know, something like that. And you'll kind
Sorry,
of
Jared.
realize
I
that,
didn't mean to
oh.
blank you when I saw you outside two chaps. I didn't mean to do it. It has nothing to do with your online presence.
But yeah, and then you just kind of have to like, you constantly have to reassess. I think like I often think about like the pathology of oversharing online. So you've got somebody like Chrissy Teigen, for example, who like, you know, does occupy this really interesting space where she shared so much of herself online, and there's like so many merits to a lot of the stuff she did, particularly around like sharing like her experiences with miscarriages and abortions especially. But then like it's such a weird thing for millions of people to know, and like she's a celebrity, so that's an extreme example, but it's really weird that like people know about my depressive episode, for example, or something. So it's like bridging that distance. It's just there's good to it, but there can also be bad where like you can feel a bit leached, I suppose, from it.
Going back to something that Panda said earlier as well, about the relationship between how we use the internet and like capitalism and work. I feel like one lens of discourse that we've been having lately is the fact that a lot of us have to be online or like have to be on Twitter to actually like promo our work, especially as people whose work perhaps at least partially, some of us primarily exists online. Like for example, like Durr-e, Adan, I know that you have a podcast which is distributed through online spaces. Like how do you reconcile the need to be online with also the need to not be online, perhaps for sanity?
I guess because another thing that I was going to mention before, I forget completely like who I was going to respond to about this. But I guess the appeal of being extremely online obviously is you have much greater control over what you show. I mean, like, you know, when you're a teen on the internet, we all have like this cringe phase where we overshare, and I think you get to a point where you learn kind of how to rein that in, and like how you want to present yourself. You realize you come to the realization that you do have this control, and so you kind of operate on the internet in that way. And yeah, like for my work, I do need to be online. Like I have, it's like I analyze queer cinema, and like I need to find it. I obviously do need to be online for my work, but I feel like I think especially like when you're switching in between platforms, there's different levels of engagement that you have with it as well. So there is like a space online where I can just, you know, depression post and be and be myself. And then there is another space online where I am doing all my research and everything. So I guess it's about compartmentalizing, and yeah, just I guess you end up learning like the etiquette of it all and how you can control that, and like to like know when you need to step back, I guess.
Yeah, and also like what people are going to respond to. Like I feel like I always want to post Julian Baker depression song lyrics to Maine all the time. Like I am like one drink away from just like fully just like, and then I just go, no, don't do it, because then everyone will know who you are. Like it's this weird thing. I feel like because if you exist online, especially as yourself, like I feel like a lot of us exist as, you know, Michael's son or Jared Richards or Panda Wong, and it's like this huge, like you commodify your own brand, and so it's about like curating your own personality in relation to whatever platform you're on. And I feel like for millennials at least, or even actually Gen Z, I think Gen Z do this as well. It's about like walking this really fine line of like likability and relatability, but never like dipping into sincerity. Like it's always like, I'm likable, I'm relatable, I'm real, but I'm not sincere because I'm ironic. Like I'm also ironic, which is weird because all those two things like work in antithesis to each other. But if you go too far in either direction, it's like super cringe. You're like, like when people give genuine advice online, which I've actually done, but I always go, ooh, like, it's their real selves. Like, you know, and like, then, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think there's something in that. Or if like people get too ironic or too guarded and aloof, there's something a little bit like, but who are you? Like, who actually are you? And so I think there's something in that, like very specific. Like I was talking to a friend and I was like, oh, is my Instagram too genuine? Like, is it too cringe? And she was like, no. She's like, it's a little bit cringe, but you offset it by posting really depressive, ironic memes to your story. So it's fine. And I was like, this is the stupidest conversation about like, I don't know, like I guess personal brand awareness. But it was like very important to me that I did not come across as cringe, because no one wants to be cringe, right?
There's nothing worse than cringe.
Yeah. It's like it's the worst thing you can be, I think, online is to be cringe.
It's also helpful when you've got like, for instance, like friends or cousins who are following your social presence online, and obviously, you know, like we've got an audience for all of our work, and so we do have to pander like a lot of our online identity to them. But you know, then you have the people that you know in real life who will text you and be like, "What the hell are you posting?"
Did you have this moment?
That's like the best thing, to just have someone to keep you in check, to be like, "What are you doing? Are you like you have a cringe meter, and that's your friends?"
Did you ever have this moment where you were like, I could never be a primary school teacher? Like I had this moment at some point when I was posting where I just went like, I could never be a teacher. I could never be a lecturer. I could never teach kids who would find my presence. Like I have given up this side of a career. Not that I would ever want to teach, because why would I ever want anything? Because I'm so ironic. No, but I was like, I just realized like, I was like, oh, like my unhinged presence on this platform, while it is working for me right now in my late 20s, who works in like media and pop culture, like it's not conducive to like, if I wanted to be a girl boss, no, I'm kidding. But like, you know, go into a more serious role, like people would be able to be like, why did you tweet so much about shitting and anal sex? And like, I don't know. And they're like, well, you can't be hired here.
Well, first of all, you are the girl boss of our hearts. So you've already achieved that status. I feel like recently someone actually told me, and I'm not sure whether this is like the best compliment I've ever received or like the worst drag, but they told me being like, you know, I'm like I really admire your social presence, because often you post the memes and I'm too scared to repost. And I'm like, what does that mean?
I was told something very similar, where somebody was like, oh, you act like your Instagram is a Finsta. I was like, oh, I don't think that's a compliment, but like but
is it accurate, Jared?
It is. I think it is accurate. Like going back to kind of that idea of balance. I mean, I think I literally quit a full-time job writing because I wanted to spend less time online, because I thought being plugged into kind of like the everyday outrage cycle of like blah 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 said this, blah 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 said that, like being dad, like all of this ridiculous stuff that doesn't matter, but it's very easy to be swept up in. It's just like so infuriating, and I was spending so much like emotional energy on it, I found. So now like on my desktop I have a newsfeed eradicator for Twitter, so the only way that I can scroll through it is on my phone, so that means I'm just always on my phone instead. But like having these breaks is really important for me. And I think like Nina, what you said about, you know, not wanting to be cringe, you know, like one person's cringe is another person's based. And that comes up a lot as well. You know, I might trademark that. I don't know. I'll work on it.
I love that. I would wear a t-shirt that said that.
I'm not selling that t-shirt. No way.
Red bubble that shit.
Put on a bucket hat.
I think like, and we're supposed to talk about this in a little bit, so maybe this is a good segue, but like that comes up a lot in kind of the way that literature is dealing with like the internet, because I think a lot of people will find one book like Lauren Oyler's fake accounts like really dry and too ironic and too cold or withholding, where like I found that really accurate and like irritating, but irritating for like a good reason, where something like Patricia Lockwood's No One Is Talking About This, I loved the end, like the end half, which steers away from the internet, but the first half, which is like just kind of like based around a Twitter format and really captures that sense of like beginning to think like online, like, and beginning to have your thoughts warped by what you need to do online to advance like your brand and your personality. And so your personality becomes like smoothed out and your thoughts become smoothed out as well. I found that beginning part really irritating in a bad way, perhaps because I felt too seen and it didn't feel ironic enough, which is like the opposite of how a lot of critics that I really respect felt about them. So I was like, maybe that's my reflection of like having to distance from sincerity.
Yeah, you mentioned this like this great genre, I guess. I think great might not be the correct word depending on what your view is, but you mentioned this genre, which has kind of gained more popularity and more critical attention recently, which is this genre of like internet fiction. And obviously you talked about Patricia Lockwood's book, Lauren Oyler's book, but I'm wondering like what other pieces of internet-focused literature that we have consumed that we find interesting or obvious.
I have it ready.
Yeah, Jared, we get it. You did an honest thesis in Tallinn. I do wonder, like, what pieces of like internet-focused literature would
I'd just like to put my hand up to say I've never read any of those books, but I did follow Tallinn's Tumblr, so
basically the same thing.
I'm part of the community. I do think I'll just say it. I feel like I'm speaking out of turn because like I'm not a book guy and I feel horrible to say that. I'm trying to be. I've read the Sally Rooney's.
Reading books doesn't make you a good person automatically. It's fine.
I think it does. No, I think it makes you much more intelligent, and it's actually superior. Like if you read books, you're like a genius and like a dumb bitch. But I do like I've read excerpts of Patricia Lockwood. I've read like the online stuff that she's done because I'm really online and you guys are posted. No, just kidding. But I don't know, there's this weird thing that I think is like around like language and understanding. It's like it's like you speak this new online language, and I think like a lot of the attraction for those books is like you kind of have to understand the language of online, and then part of it is this like masturbatory, like, oh, I know the reference to that meme. Like it's like, you know, when you see good satire and they make a joke, and then part of it is like, oh, that's a funny joke, and part of it is like, I know that that's a reference to the Harold Holt disappearance. Like it's like this smarmy confirmation of your own intelligence, or like confirmation of your own involvement in this like niche community that like not everyone will understand. And I don't really know what I'm saying, but I think like there is this like congratulatory part of it, or this like pride in like your onlineness, that you're able to interpret these texts because of how online you are. I just want to say I have ordered Patricia Lockwood's book from Booktopia and will be reading it, so I'm not like shitting on people that are like enjoying these texts, but I do think there is this like congratulatory, masturbatory quality that like you need to actually have in order to read them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like validating what you're doing online, basically. It's like, oh, someone's written a whole book about my experience, so yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually don't really like reading books about the internet. that much, mostly because, I mean, I read them, but I never seem to enjoy them, mostly because I was like, kind of that feeling like, what's that Nelly video where Kelly Rowland's texting on a phone and it's like Excel. Yeah, that's sometimes how I feel, because I'm sometimes like, this person is representing this thing and it feels so off or weird or a little bit like wrong. And I think it's just because the internet moves so quickly and things just change so much. Like that language you're referring to, that language is going to be so different in like a week from now. And by the time books go to print, it's already like light years in the past. But I feel like the thing that I love the most about the internet is that it produced, like, the internet is like its own fiction. Like if you go on Twitter, there's like a million bots that are like writing their own story. Like, I don't know if you guys know this Twitter, which is kind of the most iconic Twitter I've ever found, but it's Horse eBooks. My favorite Twitter in the world. And I thought it was like made by a bot, but then they're like, oh, it's human run. And it's actually like, in my opinion, it's my favorite poem that exists on the internet. It's just that like perfect mix of poetic language, but also kind of emotive language. And yeah, I don't think I've ever read or watched anything about the internet that's made me feel the same way that Horse eBooks feels.
Everything happens so much. Everything happens so much.
Everything happens so much. Just saying that over and over again into the void. You bring up a really interesting point, Panda, which is that I think sometimes maybe internet literature or work about the internet is better when it does not actually reference the internet itself, but instead it embodies like what it feels like to be on the internet, or it embodies that kind of like very fast-paced, chaotic method of existence. But I think you touched on something really great there, which is that sometimes like if a work itself talks about the actual internet, it can be a little bit cringe. Like that's definitely true. Whereas a better work actually reflects what it feels like to be on the internet.
I'm actually a big fan, not so much of stuff, internet fiction that's released today. I'm a big fan of like stuff that's kind of, I guess, from like maybe like 2013, 14, like pre this era that we're in, that's actually been able to predict pretty well, like how we turn to this. Like obviously Black Mirror is probably the most obvious one, I guess, because yeah, it's interesting to see, like, even though they don't have the specifics down, it's about, even though they don't have the specifics down, and even though they obviously can't predict like the exact jargon or like language that we're using these days, it's just a prediction of human behavior. So which is why I do really enjoy pre-internet fiction, that I guess like back when, like, where it's speculative instead of reality. So like I find it, like as Jared was saying about how like when you're reading something, it's like, oh, this isn't ironic enough, this is like maybe too personal. Like that's how I feel when I read things current today, but I really love when it's speculative instead. Does anyone have a favorite Black Mirror episode that they think represents this?
The dating app one?
Oh yeah, that's cute.
Very interesting. Expand upon that.
I don't think it's a good episode. I just think it was fun to watch. But okay, I'm trying to recollect because Black Mirror feels 10 years ago in my brain. But
I remember it very viscerally.
Where they have to for how long they're together and then they kind of move on to each relationship. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Hang the DJ.
Yeah, Hang the DJ, where it's like a Groundhog Day, where it's like these two people have to fall in love and escape to this wall, and it's like a great love story almost, and she kind of wakes up and does it again and again or something. Like it's like a Groundhog Day, but then with one person, she like has this great love, they run to the wall and they get over the wall, and you're supposed to feel really triumphant that this, like, finally she's found this match in this couple and it's like beautiful, but the reveal is that they're just an algorithm in a dating app. And that all these like things that they've done that are romantic are like basically just computers trying to match up singles online. Ooh, spooky.
It's such a good episode because I'm like,
what is it? What if phone but too much? Like
I think it's funny because it's just like, I guess the idea that like because algorithms, I guess, are generated by what we click on, what we buy, all of that. And that, I mean, it does say a lot about you as a person, but there's also always something ineffable about you that an algorithm will never be able to capture. And there's also stuff that algorithms get wrong, like, because I do YouTube workouts because it's lockdown, it's things that I'm obsessed with, I don't know, BTS's diet or Blackpink's like pre-show workouts. Like, it's funny what algorithms get wrong as well, just based on what you interact with.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that like was my, again, very like cringe examples, very I don't know, like leftist bro material, but like Adam Curtis and Mark Fisher. I'm so sorry. But like this is something that Adam Curtis talks about a lot, where like algorithms and technology is like not as smart as we think it is. Like people are ineffable, and there is things that can't be translated online or into novels or into, you know, text. And that's the great part of it, is that like they're not going to control us. Our lives aren't going to become Black Mirror, because I think it's giving algorithms too much credit and us not enough. I do like that idea as well, of like speculative fiction kind of controlling it a bit better as well. Or like not controlling, but detailing it. Because I think, yeah, like literal examples are really embarrassing, but more metaphorical things. Like I'm kind of thinking of, you know, like hackers, or even what is it? It was like on the tip of my tongue. Never mind. We'll edit around it. I think like, yeah, just like not being so literal opens us up to the potentialities of the internet and of being online, which could potentially be this like really utopic space, but instead is this like, is often pictured as like a horror landscape. This writer that I really like, Brandon Taylor, who wrote Real Life, which was not about the internet at all, has a Substack where he wrote about Patricia, Lockwood, and Lauren Oyler, and he talked about the internet novel being a gothic novel, which is like this very like moralistic kind of tendency to like view society's like evils like impacting you. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, Panda, about like capitalism and depression. Mark Fisher, ideas of like depression as a capitalistic force, and like the internet is just like the newest version of that. Is it any different from like, I don't know, decay in like Faulkner's novels, and like, I don't know, like just moral impurities? In that sense, like metaphors are always going to work better. Sorry, that was so rambly.
No, but it makes sense,
amazing,
because I feel like all that, like, I don't know, this is maybe me like being very like English extension 1 or whatever.
Please.
But all those like periods of like upheaval, essentially, where it feels like the world is like unstable and uncertain. Like I think with romanticism, it was like fear of technology, and that's like why all those gothic novels came about, because it was like the world's changing too much. And then like, you know, I think like that makes sense. And I think that we all feel that like the world is changing at a rate that we can't control, and that's why it is like a gothic landscape, is because it's the same kind of fear that drives us. Tell me if I'm being wrong, because I'm just trying to fit in with the people that went to university.
No,
Gothic.
not being
I'm
wrong.
kidding. I'm actually dumb core. I'm anti-academia.
That's praxis.
Yeah.
That's not good. But yeah, I don't know. I do think like there's something in that like concept of like in times where there is like great change and like uncontrollable, like, I don't know, institutional change. I think like that is when we get this art that is like about hellscapes and like terror and etc.
And I think, sorry.
No, you go.
I was just going to say that I think the internet is just like a convenient scapegoat for things. Like people are like, oh, the internet makes people racist. It's like, oh, they were probably already racist, or it makes people like angry. But it's like, I don't know, it's just a convenient scapegoat for a lot of things, but it's actually just like a medium and like a tool for most people. Like it just, the way you interact with it is like reflected in how it behaves.
if we're thinking back to like general internet literature as well, do we feel like there are any cliches that we're seeing in this like maybe like new burgeoning genre? Sure, but like are there any cliches that are already emerging?
I don't know about novels, but like the influencer going too far and then like, you know, spiraling out. The Ingrid Goes West, like Black Mirror. Is it Jessica Chastain or the other one? Bryce Dallas Howard model of like.
Nosedive.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, that episode of Black Mirror.
That's the episode.
That's the episode.
It's
Yeah.
like I've seen 2 episodes and I really liked that one. But yeah, like that model of vying for attention and for fame and then spiraling out, and then the fact that you spiraled out is actually what makes you real online, because people want authenticity and they want realness. I think it's like it's all true, but it's also like not very smart to point out, and that's maybe the thing about cliches in internet literature is like we all know this. Like it's not just like us 5 who are thinking this. It's not like Patricia Lockwood's unclocked something. Like literally your mum can tell you that the internet is bad. Like we all know this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think it's like almost, it's the reason behind why we look at something like Asina O'Neill and we're like, wow, like that's so cringe now. Because it's like, it feels so overdone and like so dumb to point out that the internet is a construction. It's like, babes, like we know. Like there's like it's like, I feel like I'm personally really sick of narratives that try and expose that to us as like a new truth.
Yeah, that's like the entire point of the internet is that it's not real, right? Like that in some ways. Maybe not like the internet or like I guess like online presence.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm just like, what is real? Everything's
But I do think it's like it's an opportunity to create an avatar of yourself, or I don't know. I feel like I just talk about so much like brand commodification, but I do think it is like, you know, it is that second. What is it like when people became addicted to Second Life and everyone was like, oh, everyone on Second Life's so sad because they're like avoiding their families and all their real problems by like pretending to be an avatar and like going to dinner parties with women or like, you know. And I do think there is this like element of like this false persona that you put into the internet and you curate for the benefit of like your own self-esteem and others, because it is like obviously an escape, like, and that's kind of why it's there. And I think the problem is when you stop enjoying it, or like when it becomes too much, or Twitter becomes like actually emotionally like too much, you put too much emotional investment in these things, like, yeah, I don't know, I think that's when you start being like, oh, this isn't fun anymore, like this isn't me living my second life, this is like impacting my real life.
Yeah,
does it make sense? I don't know, because I do think it's an escape. It's like I don't want to do anything. I might just scroll Twitter, or like I feel bad, I'm gonna like post a hot photo of myself, really betraying the kind of like narcissistic piece of shit that I am here right now. But it is like this, you know, it's an exterior source for joy and information, but it like the moment it stops being fun or like interesting, I feel like it starts being like torturous. Like I don't know, I feel like during lockdown I've just been like doom scrolling heaps and it hasn't been pleasant. It's like me procrastinating doing things in my real life that actually like nurture me and be good for me, but instead I'm just like online, like cannot stop looking at my phone. And I think that's when it becomes bad, I guess.
You go. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, my cliche that I kind of hate whenever I see it in the films and literature is that they think the average person uses hashtags way more often than they actually do. I was like, where is this coming from, and whose Instagrams are they looking at that aren't bots? Anyways, there's nothing in depth about it, so I won't go into that.
No, I actually think that's a very interesting point in that it's like there are some things that you see on screen that happen so much more than in real life. Obviously, hashtags is one of them, but I can't think of any other examples. But like it's its own freaking genre of like mise en scène.
It's because a lot of TV shows are written by baby boomers and they think that's how young people talk. And I'm so scared. Like I'm 28 and I write for TV, and I am already like feel so out of touch with people that are even like 24. I'm like, there's all this. What does elite mean? And then I'm like, oh no. What does the little boy emoji mean? What? Like, it's, I hate it. I'm like, I've just learned skull emoji and I love it. But like, I'm not part of, it's like people that get hired as TV writers aren't teenagers or young people. They're always like old.
Yeah. It's like a slight curveball, even though I know we need to wrap up. I think what we've kind of been talking about a lot. It's like there's this weird thing where the internet could theoretically be like this limitless kind of like place where you could do anything or achieve anything, like those Second Life fantasies. But instead we're just on like the same 5 websites and they all look the same. Like they've all been designed exactly the same. Everybody like has like these specific brands and these specific like millennial pinks and these like very reduced, stripped back like languages where you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, you don't understand.
I can't help you.
which is a reference of itself. And like, I don't know, it just, to me, it feels like we strip it down for like this capitalist need when it could be so much more. And maybe that's like the really bad cliche is capitalism.
Well, I feel like it has been so much more in the past, but I guess like as capitalism has like sped up, like it's only gotten worse and worse. To wrap up, I feel like maybe we should, like think ahead, think of some more positive thoughts to end. Are there kind of certain areas of internet culture that you'd like to see explored more in creative work, in literature, even in your own work? Like, what are some of the areas that you think are not currently explored enough?
I'm so excited about this question because this is all I've been reading about lately. But I think that one thing that we just never really talk about, or like we don't talk about as much when we talk about the internet, is actually like the physicality of the internet and the fact that it's like a real presence in the world. Like the internet exists because there's like there's like thick cables laid in the ocean and sharks attack them every day. And then our data is stored in these huge centers where there's like all this energy goes into like keeping them the optimum temperature. And it's just wild to me that the internet's described in these kind of ethereal terms like the cloud and stuff. And it's actually like got these really incredible impacts on the environment, like NFTs, cryptocurrency, like Ethereum using the same amount of energy as like Ecuador. And I feel like we just need to start thinking about the internet as like a really real present thing instead of kind of this, like someone mentioned, like this limitless space when it's actually there's limits on it because there's only so much storage we can have and there's only so many cables we can put in the ocean and there's only so much fossil fuels we can use. Sorry, it's not a happy tone at all. But I think it's so interesting that the internet exists in these really tangible structures that maybe we don't talk about as much yet.
I think something that I'd like to see explored more in depth is, I guess, just boundaries in internet culture. Like as we were saying about how like the digital world, it's as real as we want it to be. But I think, we need to be looking more into how, we're just not all in agreement on how real these things actually are, and that's definitely something that we need to look at because it's a problem. Sorry.
I have like an opposing view to the internet, which I just think it's like a really fucked up, interesting. Oh no, sorry. Can I say that one? I think it's like an interesting, and it's an ever evolving space. And I don't know, like part of me is like, it's not going to last forever. Like maybe I'm like a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, this is the golden age of information. I feel like it's going to be, there's like already like things put in place to like make sure we're not on all parts of the internet. And I just feel like, I don't know, as an ever evolving concept, it's really interesting and I enjoy watching things come out of it. And I want to be more down on the internet, but I ultimately think it's good and interesting.
So we're so pilled that we can't even like express our genuine thoughts. That we got.
Like it's so cringe, but I actually love the internet. I also think, there is this self-awareness around like we all are like, oh, the internet's so bad, and then we all use it every day. It's just like, I don't know. There's something in that, I think, is that we're like if we're self-aware that a bad thing's happening, then it's not actually happening. But like it's happening, fucking lean in, bitch. Shel Sandberg, lean in. I just think like it's not gonna stop. And so if you're on the internet, go hard or go home, I reckon. Go deep.
What's your screen time? Like, just want to know.
That should have been the first question, guys. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Oh God, not revealing that publicly. I really like Panda's point about like the physicality and the materiality of the internet, which like goes against lots of what I've been saying, but I think it's a really good point. And like, yeah, like I think we do kind of like forget the impact in like so many ways. I don't know, you said it already so much better than I can. I think that literature should talk about my Instagram more. That would be really good. Yeah, that's about it.
I think it should too. As someone that has a parasocial relationship to you, Dad, I'm just reading your Instagram going, oh, I know him. He's my friend.
Well, talking about your Instagram specifically, I was actually thinking about this, and I think what I want to see more of is maybe in this like kind of like Schadenfreude villainous way is like I really want to see like whatever the Pixar Disney version of the internet looks like. It's like we need a Disney princess who's an Instagay. You know what I mean? Like we need a Disney princess who is addicted to Twitter. Like we need a Disney princess who is like taking ivermectin. Like this is what we need in the world, and we want to see it now.
We need an incel princess.
I'm right here. I do think there is something in like. Sorry, like I know we're keeping talking, but I hate seeing the internet on screen. Like when I'm watching a movie or TV, and if someone's on the computer or the phone, I'm like, I hate it. Like it's too. I don't know. There's something like really embarrassing about seeing like somebody doing this. Like on a TV, I'm like, ew. Like I don't know if anyone else has that reaction.
Probably the only TV series that does it well for me is Gossip Girl, and no other TV show or movie has done the same thing for me. I don't know why. We can talk about it at length in the future. But
all I will say is that everyone needs to watch the show Generation on HBO Max, famously produced by Lena Dunham. So that's all I will say. Thank you so much, guys, for coming to the panel. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. Now we can all go back to doom scrolling.
Yay.
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 bye.
thank you.
Bye.